about some things that I was, because you have to remember, a carnal minded person will try to label you through a carnal mind. See, a worldly person doesn't understand spiritual matters, nor does an immature person that lacks wisdom. Because when the Lord tells you to guard your tongue in front of wicked people, like if people, the Lord was a man of few words. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with anybody. If you're growing wisdom or more mature and you're silent in a lot of situations, exposing the unfruitful works of darkness, such as gossiping, people using profanity, or people that you've been revealed through discernment or observation, as a carnal person would say, that there's some deception, defiance, or rebellion going on in their demeanor or behavior. So you choose not to partake in certain conversations or relationships, personally or professionally, because you know that it would lead you into troubled waters. So that doesn't mean in a carnal mind they might say, like I say, I get a lot of isolation, or um, I'm disassociating, or that's not the case. The days are evil. The days are evil, and I have spiritual discernment, a very strong mantle, an anointing that you carry the ability to tell, and just being wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Some behaviors are serpentine in nature, or leviathan. Or I talk about monitoring spirits a lot, where like an evil person's not happy unless they're causing division and or strife, or so an evil person, someone who's always talking about somebody else's problems, that's gossiping, that's tailbearing, that's backbiting. So I won't comment on those kinds of things. It's not my place to present that event. And if you're not the person that it's happened to or speaking of, or that it's directly related to, I don't know how the story might have got twisted since it's coming out of your mouth. Remember, gossip stops in a wise person's ears unless it's directly related to me, or I'm speaking life about that situation to edify or redirect. But if I don't find or feel that I can add to or promote growth, or if it's the wrong time to speak in that, like sometimes I'll wait a couple of days. I'll pray on something and I'll say, Lord, how should I respond or speak on this situation? Because there's a lot of things I don't partake in anymore at this cross. It says, guard your tongue, be slow to speak in front of a wicked person. Because if, like, let's just say they said something and it was an error and you commented on that, that would be a false accusation that might have came out of your mouth. I'm not saying to walk on eggshells, but I'm telling you that people reveal if they're in Judas state of an existence, if they're always talking about other people, if they're always worried about other people's lives, if they use a lot of profanity, they're in a state of rebellion. These are people that the Lord says to pick and choose your friends wisely at the cross. So, when people are living or directing their nature, or their members are coming or stemming or responding or acting or interceding out of the kingdom of darkness, so there's a lot of interaction that I won't take place. It becomes transactional to them. It has no value or meaning, because if they're gossiping about somebody else, they've diminished the value or depleted. Their life and death is in the power of the tongue. They're speaking death over somebody's life. They're worried about, they're busybodying. The Lord reprimands his children about this. Busybodying, talebearing, backbiting, gossiping, slandering. That's like coveting your neighbor. Destroying someone else's, causing division in someone else's life. It doesn't concern you. So, yeah, I'll listen. But if I think in my mind, not only in my physical maturities, but in my spiritual maturities, if I should respond or react, because see, remember, when you're at the cross, you're listening to understand, not to respond. And that should not even, I can tell people, not even if you know who Jesus is, you know through physical maturities what could be beneficial in conversation or what couldn't be. This is where I tell you some of your greatest wisdom and understanding should come from life's experiences. Knowing when to speak, knowing when not to speak, knowing if you're building up, or if what you can say could edify or redirect. If I know like something, if I know that something I could say on this particular conversation. If it's not going to change, deplete, renew, redirect, or have any value, the words I speak, I don't say it. I just don't. I might say, I'm sorry, or sometimes I won't say nothing, you know. But if it's a situation that's not ended in a result, or have an end factor, or you don't have all the information, why would you speak on that? Like I said, a carnal person doesn't understand spiritual matters. But when there's a lot of rebellion going on, I'm not going to speak. I am not going to speak. I don't have no problems talking about my testimony or my life or my transition to this cross with anybody. That's usually what I'm speaking of, because I bear this cross. And I want people to know how much he has done for me and the prophetic times we're in. And no one can stop the prophetic time clock. So I choose not to speak in certain situations because I know how derogatory it could be to my sound mind, to my spiritual growth. Those are the things I'm thinking of. My salvation. And I don't want anybody that's in active rebellion or gossiping or talebearing or demeaning or depleting or talking about something they shouldn't be talking about factor into that, or weigh me down, or cause the strife or division, or bring chaos into my life. So some things, like I said, the Lord was a man of few words. He spoke when it was necessary. Because if we're not using our tongue, life and death is in the power of the tongue. The tongue is the most evil, vilest member of your body. And the Lord reprimands us all the time. And just not even if people don't know who the Lord is, just being a wise, mature person, you should know that sometimes it's best to be silent in certain situations. If it doesn't concern you, if you know the words you say can offer no value, or if it didn't come out of the person's mouth that the person's referring things to, there's just certain times you learn to be silent. There's nothing wrong with being wise. There's nothing wrong with having wisdom. I don't, like I say, if you're always talking, you can never see the things you need to see going on around you. You won't be, that's where your discernment comes in. When you're silent, your observation as a carnal person would say, or discernment will come in. You can disperse or see. That's how Jesus was able to tell his betrayer. By watching people's demeanor, their members, how they carried themselves, the words they spoke. They were rebellious in nature. Not only were they his Judas, they were their own Judas. When you're defiant or rebellion, you're destroying your own law. You're not only my betrayer, you're betraying your own self. Because anybody with a sound mind, with wisdom, and wants peace in their life is not going to want to partake in those divisional lifestyles or conversations. Anybody wise wouldn't. I don't want to talk. I'll redirect. I'll talk. I'm kind. I'm cordial. Not saying not to be. Not saying not to be respectful. I'm saying learn when to speak and when not to speak. Etiquette. Be wise. And I don't conversate in a lot of immature conversations. Or if it doesn't concern me. That's why I always say the isolation, the labels that carnal-minded people give you. When the Lord commands you to be separate, come out from among them. Bad company corrupts good morale. You can't drink the cup of devils and drink the cup of the Lord. That's coming out of captivity, not sitting in it. This is how I'm saying they've become one mind with Satan. And they try to label you like there is an error in you. Remember, Satan has a way of making the righteous, remember, we're peculiar, strange people to the world. So the world can't figure out people at the cross. If the world hates you, it hated me first. I'm the light of the world. See, these are people that are spiritually immature. So this is where the difference in opinion occurs. And they're one mind with Satan operating the way he is. The accusatory spirits, the worldly mind, the Roman mind, you're not living for the things we are. You don't talk to us about the things we talk about. Like I said, that is your seducing spirit. It will drag you back into the world that the Lord freed you from. I don't want to live in the world. I don't want to love the things of the world. Love of the Father's not in you if you love that. The world lies under the power of the wicked one. This is all scriptural. But a lot of people are under this power and don't realize it, for they know not what they do. Father, please forgive them. A lot of people are under this power. And so they're in captivity. The irony is that they accuse you of the very things they are. They're in captivity. And actually, if you want to get surreal about it, they have a disassociative order from Christ or their Christ-like image. They've separated themselves from the face of God. Their sins or iniquities, and that's even in their tongue. Their native tongue is of their father, the devil. Remember, he's of the world. Satan is the god of this world. He is of the world, and their rebellion is most definitely is the sin of witchcraft, profanity, perverse conversation, gossiping, backbiting, talebearing. So that's why I always say, don't let an ungodly person determine your identity when you're at this cross and sanctified. Do not allow it. Take not counsel from the wicked. And the Lord's never going to use someone ungodly to redirect your life either. The Lord would never, that's why I'm saying you have to be cautious. And don't let a carnal-minded person determine your walk with Christ. Because they won't understand it anyway. It says you become peculiar. You're strange. You're strange. You're in the wilderness. You're strange in this land of defiancy when you come to the cross. You're the stranger. You're no longer in this world. You're not of it. So you're a stranger in the land of the enemy. You're in your wilderness season. And you stay. You endure to it. I know what the Lord told me to get a seal. And I omit a lot of things out of my life. Conversation, relationships. And what I can say or not say. Guard your tongue, be slow to speak. That's biblical. I'm at the Bible, I'm at the cross. I live it, I eat it, I learn it, I read it, I'm a doer of that word. And it requires me not to speak sometimes.